New announcement from Google on the heels of the Facebook data hack. Google Plus is going away. It's going to become a thing of history very, very soon. This is what is in the news. Google Plus will be shut down after user information was exposed. I'll share with you a little bit of information regarding that, and then we'll also cover another headline here. Google now plays good censor for civility's sake, according to a linked internal memo, which I read most of it and got an idea of what's inside of it, and we'll read you the report from RT in just a minute. So with regards to Google Plus, they said on Monday that's going to shut down that social media service, which, was created as Google's version of Facebook. 500,000 users lost their private data, but what is this data? Search engine results, things that specific people look up. What will this be used for? These are common sense questions. Google did not tell its users when this took place, and that was back in March. It appeared at that time that no one gained access to user information. And their company decided that it was not legally required to report what happened. The decision to stay quiet, which raised eyebrows in the cybersecurity community, comes against the backdrop of relatively new rules in California and Europe that govern when a company must disclose a security episodes. Google said it had found no evidence that outside developers were aware of the security flaw, and no indication that any user profiles were touched. But what kind of data? And notice that we're not really getting that information yet, but we have a few years now of being inundated with stories about data loss, and frankly, a lot of people are numb. They're thinking, well, I've got nothing to hide. I'm not a criminal, or I've got hardly anything in my bank account. Let them take what's there. And they're not thinking about some of the other ways in which data is used, can be used, will be used. The disclosure made on Monday could receive additional scrutiny because of a memo to senior executives reportedly prepared by Google's policy and legal teams that warned of embarrassment for the company, similar to what happened to Facebook this year if it went public with the vulnerability. Moving over to the story from RT. Internal research commissioned by Google confirms Orwellian-scale censorship powers enjoyed by tech giants. It says that free speech is a utopian idea, and creating ordered spaces for safety and civility is Google's new mission. There's been a lot of disinformation that they allowed online. I remember talking to somebody about this last year, and he said, well, that would really stop if people were taxed by their posts, which just sounds ridiculous. So the common man and woman that's getting their information from the mainstream, in between commercials, when they're probably listening to UFC radio on Sirius, or something ridiculous, some other form of bread and circus, they're really tapped out, if you will, from the greater reality. And you can even say that we really do have a lack of genuine tough guys on a intellectual level that are really willing to go up to bat against what's going on and expose what's taking place. There's a lot of counterfeit, toxic masculinity, and it's manifesting in a number of different ways, as well as a lot of a real lack of genuine, nurturing, feminine energy. So basically, we're dealing with a reality where people are more concerned with censoring other people than speaking their own truth. And it's one thing to not, agree with what someone says and to even produce a counter argument against it. But, one of these websites that I looked at, and they were given examples of toxic comments. Even criticism of Trump was included. Criticism of Trump voters. So the narrative that you're getting that it's just one-sided is not exactly fair or honest. There was a number of different examples given. Basically, having a strong political opinion was seen as a negative thing, was seen as toxic in general. So there was a number of different things in that study and things that it linked to. And so on paper, somebody may look at some of this and read the report and say, well, this sounds good. because there's some factual things that are mentioned there. But they make it about the election, and they leave out certain things, and they don't really explain how certain channels out of nothing, and with YouTube's help alone, grew to their own, if you will, 15 minutes of fame. Where some of these same individuals that they're being critical of, that they're criticizing, they're not really explaining their rise to fame. To be honest with you, and anyone that knows anything about the alternative media knows this, people in the alternative media don't do a whole lot for each other unless there's something in it for them monetarily. It's the nature of the beast, and we're in a fallen world. And so when you have people that are doing really, really well on YouTube, it's because the machine is dictating. It's because the algorithm is dictating that they do really, really well. It's not because someone with a viral website like the Drudge Report is sharing their links. It's that whatever they're doing, whatever they're saying is in reality, regardless of what's in the news, is preferred by the algorithm. The talking points, the things that they're saying, the keywords that are mentioned. And it's relative whether that's good or bad. Everyone should have the opportunity to start a new YouTube channel and to become successful. But I've been on YouTube for a number of years. Things were different back in the day. And there are ways in which YouTube has played their role in directing even what the conspiracy narratives are, based on what's trending, what's being promoted. And then that fuels a vicious cycle of that particular belief system, especially, or keywords, once they're identified to be very advertiser friendly. Then it becomes something that grows. Once people figure out, well, just stick with these topics and Google will reward until it punishes. They get into conspiracy theories in this document, but they still do not differentiate. For example, what if someone has a conspiracy theory about COINTELPRO in the modern day alternative media like I do? People that are fake, information that comes out of major websites like InfoWars with distorted information. What about that individual that's blowing that whistle and crying foul? The truth is they're thrown in the same category of the undesirables, but they don't tell you that in these documents. So I'll go back and read a little bit more. It's called The Good Censor, and you can read it for yourself. Tech firms have gradually shifted, this is from the document, away from unmediated free speech and towards censorship and moderation. Google's mission, as well as that of other social media platforms, has become something to, quote, create well-ordered spaces for safety and civility. The one question that I have is, who do you go to for help when Google itself acts in a manner to publish or punish content creators that are standing against some of these extreme actions? You don't run to anyone, because a lot of people in society don't care, especially about a YouTuber. They've been socially conditioned to view the YouTuber with suspicion in general, and to, associate the average YouTuber with, say, for example, the average gamer. And so, when you're coming across talking points from a person like I did, who listens to UFC radio on Sirius, and he's spouting off like he's some intellectual, well, they ought to tax people by the post. That'll stop them. Why employ a tyrannical publish and charge them all policy to deal with stuff that we have questions as to how it got so viral to begin with? There's a lot of controversy about the Daily Stormer, by the way, which you can read about. And they have false information in the document saying that the Daily Stormer was removed off the internet. That's actually not true. It still remains. And there was one time under the Google News category, and of course, to distinguish that between that and the Google search bar. There's the Google search bar, google.com. Then there's news.google.com. And there will be things that news.google.com will recommend you check out, and it's usually the mainstream. I've seen it linked to the Daily Stormer. I've seen it linked to InfoWars. So the real Google and what it's really doing is doing other things to create the the excuse for the clamp down. It's done its role. It's not being credited by many people on the right for helping the rise of certain content reach the masses. But in reality, it's a different system that's actually in operation. Very different than the Google that presents itself before the mainstream world. And so the greater question is, who's really controlling Google? As we go to the next paragraph, the document outlines several reasons for tech firms to embrace the shift, such as to appease disgruntled users, address regulatory demands in countries like China, and that's very telling, and to make money from the content and to avoid losing advertisers that shun controversy. But what is controversial? So even videos about relationships, even videos about religion. So we have to continue to think outside the box of this medium. And we'll see where this goes. The briefing names several global events that have undermined the concept of free speech. And again, they make it about the 2016 U.S. presidential election instead of actually get specific with the disinformation and talking about how some communities have been harmed and have been threatened, and maybe discussing ways in which things could be better without silencing free speech, without censoring. And when they don't even differentiate between conspiracy theories that are used to harm people and conspiracy theories that are natural, where we try to understand where the hate's coming from, where the rise in some of these memes are coming from. I mean, that's the real conspiracy conversation that we should be having, because things were more relaxed 10 years ago. Even among racial lines, a lot of the memes that are raging right now are artificial memes that were not predominant in any town, middle America, 10 years ago. You know, I understand there are people that are upset about immigration and other things. Things are not at nightmarish, apocalyptic levels, however, within the United States at this time. And people act as if it is at nightmarish, almost about to on the brink because of these people. There are systemic economic problems that we're facing and geopolitical realities that are our true biggest issues and problems. Google's done its role to distort reality. And it's important that people that identify with both the left and the right come to terms with this, regardless of how they feel about that fact. Because people on the left that are okay with censorship now aren't realizing, right, that this whole sword can be turned on them. Remember, the pen is mightier than the sword. But then when you have things that can actually erase what the pen actually wrote, then you're dealing with a very dangerous situation indeed. I also invite you to check out a blog I wrote in 2005 or 2006. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll fight for your right to say it. Check it out. Wrote it about 12 years ago. And there's some things that I wrote about years ago. And I talked about how the new hate speech would be concern and distrust of government in a future dystopian reality. And I was vibing to that 2005. And so check out that blog and look at where we are now. In the future, I'll have a podcast for those of you that are new so you can see how long has this been going on? How long have I been talking about them using people like Alex Jones and the disinformation, some of it which they helped create, to, in a COINTELPRO manner, false flag manner, throw the rest of the truth movement under the bus. In this other headline, you can check it out for yourself if you're interested. Yoga practice reduces the psychological distress and paranoid thoughts of prison inmates. So as you come to the awareness that we're in some sort of a spiritual prison, I believe that meditation is one of the ways to reach a state of calmness, regardless of your lifestyle. I don't believe that you need to be perfect or a part of a religion, but there is this, if you look at the nature of Facebook, basically, it is that which promotes the monkey mind, literally jumping from thought to thought to thought, boing, 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 and meditation, observing your thoughts, letting them go, grounding out stuck images, right? That's the opposite direction that social media takes you. than the direction that Facebook will take you. Facebook can take you in a direction where all of a sudden your thoughts will increase very sharply, but are they the best thoughts? Somebody on YouTube could be whipping you up in a very angry state of consciousness. Too much of the LED, too much of the flat screen, too much of the looking at certain websites can actually cause a negative behavioral response. But a lot of people are acting like they are machines. They're not acting like they're human. They're acting like they're non-human, like it's normal for people to be staring into their cell phone and for all of this to be, such a wonderfully celebrated virtual reality world. There are people that are actually critical of transhumanism, but they're pretty good examples of the transhumanistic experience with their deep and profound relationship to their cell phone. We have to try to find ways to be responsible for our own behaviors and actions and how much we interface with technology. It's like people could be like, being on Facebook, blogging on Facebook addictively while talking about being victimized by social media and mind controlled by social media, cursing out Zuckerberg while they spend their 6 hour on social media. It's kind of like, picture the wino drunk cursing the old English as he asks for spare change to get more. This is an insane asylum. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time that people start thinking outside the box of what they thought was reality. Till the next video, I'm Alex Censor, reminding you the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within.